as well. Cool. I think we're all good to go. So in that case, I'd like to invite the PM to start the debate. Here.
Just checking you can hear me. Yeah, okay, awesome. Parasocial relationships are perhaps the most unfulfilling thing that exists on the planet. They mean that teenagers and people who are vulnerable spend hours on their phones scouring through content of people that they will literally never meet. It makes them go insane. It makes them feel like there is no one there for them because they attach so much emotional investment into this person. That comes at a direct trade-off of in-person relationships with people who don't actually care about them. 3 contributions from opening government. Firstly, why these relationships are immensely unfulfilling. Second of all, on why this is a direct trade-off to your actual life, and finally, the impacts on these celebrities. Firstly, 4 pieces of setup. 1, we know that the types of people who are most likely to enter parasocial relationships are 1, people who are craving an in-person relationship and use this as a way to fulfill that feelings of loneliness and isolation. But second of all, people who would just otherwise be regular fans, who the normalization of parasocial relationships have opted into something further than they otherwise would. Secondly, what do we think these parasocial relationships look like? It looks like 1, it's spending an obsessive amount of time scouring over these people. 2, being incredibly irrational. But 3, trading off going on your phone for spending time with other people. That is obviously bad. Thirdly, why do you think this rise has occurred? 1, things like social media. But 2, famous people sharing more of their lives online, which means that people feel like they are more able to opt into that person's online life and feel like they have an ability to be a part of that person's life in a way that they do not. Note the fact that the counterfactual is twofold. 1, it's just less people having parasocial relationships. But 2, it's those people who would be in parasocial relationships in a status quo, instead just being a part of the regular fandom. Because note the fact that celebrities can still share parts of their life online, but people now don't feel like they have an entitlement to that celebrity's life in the point where parasocial relationships are not as normalized as they are under the status quo. Firstly, why do we think this is immensely unfulfilling? 6 reasons. 1, this relationship is totally one-sided. You get virtually no engagement back from this person because they often have such a high following they will never notice you. 2, it is totally out of your control. Whether that person does something bad or good, you have no influence over, and that means that all of their actions are done by them and you have to deal with the implications of that yourself. Thirdly, there's no pushback on you. So note the fact that there is no ability for you to grow as a person in this relationship because you are the only one that is a part of it. That means that doing regular things like building your communication skills or building your abilities of resilience are totally made nullified by a parasocial relationship. D, it's incredibly stressful by virtue of the fact that if someone like Maddie Healy does a terrible thing, you feel like you have to deal with the fallout of that because you're attached to that person and their downfall directly impacts you. Next, it's incredibly unreliable. Note the fact that the amount of content this person produces or the amount of content they put online is just unreliable. You might get some weeks and none the other. And the weeks where you get nothing makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel like you're in this crevice of not having any ability to interact with that person. And that impacts your mental health profoundly. No, finally though, we note that there's a massive abuse of power. In the small instances in which these fans do meet up with these people, that means that these celebrities have a huge amount of power over them. That is obviously bad. That is obviously incredibly rare, but in the instances in which it does occur, it's terrible. What are the impacts of this? Twofold. 1, it means you expend a huge amount of your emotional energy and emotional capacity to virtually no return, noting that the people who enter in these relationships often have less in real life friendships anyway. That means that all of your emotional energy is taken up with that person. But secondly, people often don't realize that these parasocial relationships are actually impacting their life because they are in such an irrational state. And we note the fact that often those with parasocial relationships bind together into a kind of awful community, and that echo chamber is terrible because it means that they all get each other off on spending time with this person, and that is obviously bad. Second of all, what is the impact on your real life? Note the fact here, panel, that the amount of time that you have to actually spend interacting with this person online to warrant a parasocial relationship is just quite high. So that should make you believe that the trade-off of time that you are spending with them is just massive. But second of all, the emotional capacity that you spend dealing with this person is huge, because note the fact that all of the time that you are emotionally spending thinking about this person, interacting with this person, thinking of how you could possibly meet this person, is emotional energy that comes at the expense of improving your own relationships or your own friendships or seeking out an active relationship in your real life. Thirdly, though, you note that you compare your in real life friendships to your parasocial relationship. And that is bad because your in real life friendships and relationships can never live up to that parasocial relationship because that person in your mind has never done anything wrong. You never critique them because you're in such an irrational state. And so that means you view them as perfect in a way that your in-person relationships can never lead up to, and that is obviously bad. Fourthly, though, we note that the amount of people, the type of person that enters into this are often young people, which means that they're incredibly inexperienced and they have a lack of ability to juggle multiple relationships at once. So they often pick that parasocial relationship over any relationships at all. And that is obviously terrible because young people are the ones who need to invest time in other relationships the most. But fifthly, note the fact that you will be seen in real life as a freak because people think that you have an attachment to a person that's incredibly unhealthy. They think that you are a stalker. And note the fact that people know that you have this parasocial relationship because you have an incentive to do things like incessantly post about them on Twitter or Instagram. You have an incentive to talk about them all the time. You have an incentive to talk about them as if they are a friend when they are not. And people often view that behavior as odd and unusual because it is. And that means that you are more socially ostracized than you otherwise would be. Before I move on to the impacts of this, I'll take closing if you have something.
The average person has a basic understanding of when they feel bad. If you continuously feel like shit, you're likely to disengage from a relationship. It's not clear why, if you're continuously hurt, you would continue to be irrational and support them. You have to prove this.
Yeah, so our claim isn't that you feel like shit. Our claim is that you are unfulfilled. Those two things are different. If you feel like shit, you will opt out of it. But the problem is that these people are so irrational that they actually don't realize that they feel bad because they get such a dopamine hit every time this person posts on social media, or because they feel like every time they have some form of interaction with another person in a parasocial relationship with them, that makes them feel so happy that they don't feel like shit. Our claim is simply that this relationship is deeply unfulfilling. Even if you as a person in that relationship do not realize it is unfulfilling, that is the problem. What is the impact of this argument? Three things. One, you lose out on in real life relationships. Second of all, you don't get the cumulative benefits of friendships because you spend so much time thinking about this person. That comes at a direct trade-off of your in-person relationships. And that means that it makes the harms of our first argument even worse because you don't have the bonds and value of those friendships to help you out of that space that is incredibly dark. But thirdly, we note the fact that the type of people who are likely to opt in, as I explained, are vulnerable people, often members of the queer community. And we note that now those people, instead of seeking out queer communities in their own life, seek them out online. And that is terrible because these types of communities that exist online are incredibly toxic. They are places of echo chambers that just make people feel validated by their parasocial relationships when in fact they should not. Note the fact at the end of this case panel, our claim is not that these relationships make people feel terrible. Our claim is that people don't realize that these relationships will make them feel terrible in the future. They do not realize how unfulfilling they are because they don't have anything to compare them to. When people who would otherwise just be regular fans of celebrities instead opt into a parasocial relationship, that is when harm accrue to people who otherwise would never experience them. And that is why we must regret parasocial relationships.
I'd like to thank the member for his very fine speech, and I'd like to welcome the Leader of Opposition to carry on the debate. Hear, hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're going to start. Oh, wait. POIs in the chat, please. I'll take one around 5 or so. Only in the chat. I'm not going to hear you otherwise. Okay, I need some water and then I'll get started. Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Two arguments in this debate. Firstly, what the counterfactual is for fans, why it's likely things like alt-right movements or other types of things that are probably going to be far worse. Secondly, what the counterfactual is for celebrities and why they have to do much more intensive forms of marketing that's actually going to be far worse for them on the whole. But before I get to that, some framing. Firstly, why do people get into these kinds of relationships to begin with? One, I think these people have a lack of real relationships around you. Because no, if OJ says the counterfactual is real relationships, guys, that's what most people engage in already. Notably, most people do not engage in these types of parasocial relationships. This is a minority of the broad population. So if someone is doing this, it is probably because they have a lack of real relationships to begin with. Secondly, I think that they are already idolizing these celebrities. Thirdly, I think that they have an innate tendency to get obsessed. Like, guys, I obsess around Marvel, for example, but I don't obsess about it to the extent that these types of people do. I think many of them have innate tendencies that the average person probably does not have, which is why a minority of people are engaging in these types of parasocial relationships. Finally, importantly, this means that these people are probably going to be primed for similar things on Gov's side anyway. Secondly, I want to characterize what these relationships look like. One, I think that they're not unfulfilling like OG says, because many times these people do give feedback to you. So this looks like Twitch streamers talking to their chat, for example, celebrities making videos to talk to their fans or talk to them at concerts or things like that. So I just don't think it's the case that these are entirely unfulfilling. Two, I think people have the agency and choice to choose what is fulfilling for them or what is not. So if someone chooses to say that watching a Twitch stream all day is the thing that is fulfilling for them, it's unclear to me why we have the agency to say that isn't, given that they're the one that knows their own preferences the most. Secondly, many times these celebrities usually espouse good things, and notably this is to avoid being canceled, which allows them to actually do good things and promote good ideas in these communities. Finally, I think that they form community. So this looks like people getting together and talking about Taylor Swift or talking about their favorite streamer, for example, which allows them to create discourse about this. Last piece of framing. I think most are at least the large majority of these people are not like incels or horribly bad people. One, because these people still have innate morals, so they're able to still say, hey, doing like really horrible things is probably so bad. Secondly, though, we think these people won't matter even if they are a large portion, because they're still going to be looking for incel content online anyway. So even if they don't form parasocial relationships online, many of those type of people would be going to other types of places like 4chan or Reddit, and thus they're still going to exist on either side of the house. Great. With that, our first argument is on the counterfactual for fans. Specifically, we think that they are counterfactual are things like political groups, alt-right movements, becoming obsessed with things or brands instead of people, or forming your own local groups to replace these types of things. One, why is it likely that they go to something else and something worse? One, I think these people, per the framing, still have innate tendencies to obsess over things, and so are very likely to do these types of things anyway, because that's their own innate tendency to obsess over things that they like. Secondly, I think that there are people who are chronically online and were pushed on here by something bad anyway. Like, just recognize, you don't just randomly become a parasocial fan of Taylor Swift. It is one, the innate biological tendencies we noted above, and two, the fact that you likely, for example, maybe lost all your friends or bullied a lot at school, things like that, and that pushes you onto the online sphere where all these other types of communities still exist. That then means that people are going to be doing other things. Secondly, why are the other forms of these communities, why is the counterfactual likely to be something worse? One, I think recognize that most people exist in places like third world countries to developing countries where you're very likely to have like authoritarian governments that are obsessed with politics. And I think even if you're not, I think the world at large is still obsessed with these types of politics. Do you look at people who talk about immigration, for example? Many countries have ethnic divides, for example. So I think, and many countries, for example, are ethnically, not ethnically, but have religious divides, or people themselves are incredibly religious. What this necessarily means they already have lots of ties to these types of things. So if they are the type of people to form innate tendencies and obsessions with someone, then they're very likely to form those obsessions around the things that are very close to them at home, such as their own ethnic, racial, or religious identity. That then means that these are the likely counterfactual for these types of people who are probably going to be forming similar types of obsessions anyway, just with some sort of race or religion instead of a specific individual. Why is this worse? One, celebrities are public facing, so they can talk about this much better. They also can be publicly criticized because they are public face, so we can call them out for bad stuff on platforms like Twitter, for example. And we see this with like celebrities like DaBaby, who largely fall out of the mainstream conversation after being canceled for doing bad things like homophobia. Secondly, I think that because other people can come and replace them, and because sponsors are risk adverse, and sponsors are the ones who are largely paying for these types of people, for example, they're much more likely to try to get rid of these people if they are a brand risk. So if a celebrity is constantly doing really bad things, they're probably going to be pushed into a much smaller sphere or be deplatformed because the people on that platform, like the sponsors, for example, who are associated with them, do not want to be associated with them. Secondly, I think they have active incentives to give them good advice because it just promotes their own community, makes them themselves feel safer, and allows them to look good in the media overall. Finally, I think that political issues are much worse because they much more easily boil down to things like violence, etc., because they deal with real life people, and they actually actively encourage hating, for example, especially with many politicians, for example, encouraging fear mongering or trying to promote a nationalist identity so people are more loyal to the government itself. These are the likely counterfactuals. Notably, all the burnout arguments then about why these types of relationships and obsessions are bad that OG gives are symmetric and so likely to happen, but only applicable to the types of relationships that we just characterized above. Before I go on, CG. OG.
Sorry. CG does have one. I was unmuting. Yeah. So would you consider a parasocial relationship with your government still a parasocial relationship?
That's not a parasocial relationship, right? A relationship is with another individual. But if I'm obsessing generally over my religion or obsessing generally over my race, the mechanism through which I do that is the government. But I'm not obsessing the government. I'm obsessing my religion or things like that, right? So these are completely different things. That's not what a parasocial relationship is, because that's with a specific individual. This is not with a specific individual. I've already done then the weighing on why this is worse. So we're going to go into the second thing. On the counterfactual for celebrities, just note that many of these people, for example, got to do far less marketing over time as the rise of parasocial relationships happen, because these intense kind of fan bases are actually free forms of marketing for them, because they have people who are willing actively to do this type of marketing for you. I think the counterfactual then is, if you can't do this, celebrities lose this kind of credibility. They lose a lot of fans, etc. So if you only have these quote unquote normal fans, they are much more likely to do things like being forced to expose their personal lives for dramatization in the media, because that's what's going to get more people to click on them, to like them, to view their streams, all these types of things. This is bad because notably many of these celebrities have managers that force them to do these types of things. Especially this is bad for up and coming artists who barely have any power in the space. That necessarily means that they're going to have to do worse things with their personal lives and actively show them to people. The reason why this is worse is because fans themselves, you can motivate them to do good things, but if you're showing your entire life to the world, you can feel like you have no sense of privacy. So that's worse on the whole. For all these reasons, we are very proud to oppose.
I'd like to thank that member for his very fine speech, and I'd like to invite the DPM to carry on the debate. Here. DPM, are you there?
No, I'll obviously do both. Hi, yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Just give me one sec. Okay, sorry. To what the counterfactual is and what the alternatives that exist for lonely people are. The counterfactual we get from opening opposition is actually insane. They're like, you are someone who is online and clearly displays some obsessive tendencies. Therefore, in the absence of the rise of parasocial relationships, you would become alt-right. And I just want to note that there are analytical gaps at literally every level of this argument. Let's note firstly that people's tendency to become obsessive and online is formed to a substantial extent by their environment or by the expectations placed on them. So it's not the case that people who enter parasocial relationships are always going to be so profoundly obsessive that they would become alt-right psychopaths. It's the case that the normalization of parasocial relationships has encouraged people to enter them more. It's encouraged people to become more addicted to social media or become more addicted to their phones or become more addicted to that kind of culture. But secondly, the counterfactual is vastly more likely that you become an intense fan of that celebrity rather than believing you have an entitlement to the relationship. And that's a really important difference that Bella points out in her speech, right? Which is, yes, some people in the absence of parasocial relationships will care a lot about Maddie Healy and Taylor Swift. They will find community with other people who like Maddie Healy and Taylor Swift. They will care about their art. They will care about them as celebrities, sure. The difference is they don't feel that they are entitled to a relationship with that person or believe that person to be their friend or try to convince themselves of that. Like, we think fandom is fine if you want to opt into it. That is not a parasocial relationship, and that is the vastly more likely comparative given what we know about these people. But thirdly, they give us totally inadequate proof for you to believe that these people would otherwise become alt-right or become obsessed with their governments. That requires a very particular political perspective. You have lots of reasons not to become obsessed with an authoritarian government, or if you are, that's likely inexclusive, which is my fourth response, that in the cases opening opposition describes, the obsession is just inexclusive. Like, people care about their racial identity a lot or their national identity a lot, regardless of whether the rise of parasocial relationships exist. These are different kinds of phenomena. One is relational and one is political. It's much more likely that this is additive to the world as we know it rather than taking things away. And if it is taking anything away, it's taking away people's desire to become an intense fan. It is not taking away people's political perspective that is a deep implausible argument, and check your notes, it just simply is not proven. So what alternatives do we provide you then for lonely people, so how they can become happy? The first thing we note in Bella's speech is that parasocial relationships make people lonelier than they would be otherwise. So even if you believe no one's going out of their way to become friends with people who are obsessed with Maddie Healy, they become lonelier than they would be by virtue of being in these relationships, because they suck people in, they make them sad, they brand them as a freak, they take a huge amount of time and emotional energy that you would otherwise spend on meeting new people. And importantly, these people can otherwise turn to collectives, fandoms, where you can meet other people and talk about your obsession with Maddie Healy. And people do, even shy or lonely people, have the desire to meet up or connect with others, but now they have the ability to take an easy, if ultimately self-destructive, route out. We say lonely people are not condemned. Parasocial relationships are often entered into when people are quite young, but where they could otherwise develop social skills which are in fact cumulative and which will help them going forward. Now they're trapped in a very, very bad cycle. So people have better access to relationships on our side, and the alternative is not as this opening opposition describes. That is completely implausible. Secondly then, why these relationships are incredibly unfulfilling. In response to all of Bella's very detailed material, we get a few pushes. The first thing they say is they're not that unfulfilling because you can talk to celebrities at concerts. One, if you are interacting with this celebrity, it is definitionally not parasocial. But secondly, even if you have those rare interactions, they are pretty rare for most people. And as in those kids who are obsessed with YouTubers meet up with those YouTubers and then are much more prone to things like abuse, where those parasocial relationships transition from being parasocial to actually social. Secondly, and more compellingly, they say, well, perhaps you might have a community with other people who are also in a parasocial relationship. That ignores the fact that the counterfactual is things like fandoms, yeah? Rather than just like not knowing anyone else who's into Taylor Swift. But importantly, you might, maybe in their world, be on Reddit threads where you talk to other people and say like, you know, we all are obsessed with Taylor Swift. We all think she should do this thing with her own life. The problem then is you're not having community in a meaningful way. You're affirming one another's behavior, but the object of your desires is that celebrity rather than making meaningful bonds with other people who share your interests. That's the difference, which is why the form of community they support is actually deeply toxic and bad and unfulfilling, but the form of community we get is very good. The final thing I just want to explain is that, of course, people do not exit parasocial relationships even if they're very bad. Firstly, because people are irrational. They often overestimate happiness or hits of dopamine. By the analysis of that team, you would believe that people never leave, for instance, abusive or toxic relationships. Clearly, empirically, that is untrue. But secondly, you often don't know you're being harmed because there is of human have and would put time into if you were not in this cycle, but you don't understand that those are good things that you are in fact being deprived of. This is incredibly bad for people who are in these relationships for all the material Bella gives. The final thing I'm going to do then after this is just explain why this is terrible for celebrities themselves or the people who are the subjects of these relationships. Before that, I'll take opening. Closing.
For fandoms and communities to form, you must have something in common, like a person that you love and obsess with. You cannot claim fandoms and communities without having parasocial relationships. You don't provide any analysis for that.
That's completely untrue. You can care about a celebrity but not believe that you have a relationship with them or see them as your friend. That is literally in the info slide. But secondly, even if it is true that in some cases fandoms become a knit to the info slide, it is clearly different to be a fan of someone or a fan of their art or the things they produce and believe that you have a relationship with them or you're entitled to, for instance, make decisions about their dating life. Ridiculous. So why is this terrible for celebrities? Firstly, they feel incredibly objectified because members of the public do the things they describe. They feel that they have an entitlement to the kind of person you date or what you do with your free time. And importantly, this is a particularly kind of evil sort of objectification because members of the public believe that yourself and your personhood is so shallow that they can be your friend through only the things that are put out by your public persona, right? Like that's a very offensive thing to believe about anyone. But secondly, it leads to concrete invasions of privacy. People, for instance, wanting to know what you're doing or know what you're doing with your partner or stalking you, for instance, increases where parasocial relationships do. And thirdly, celebrities are often forced to conceal relationships. See K-pop stars who by their contracts aren't allowed to have public girlfriends because it would piss off so many insane people on the internet, which is terrible for them and their freedom. And obviously that is somewhat true just by virtue of being a celebrity regardless, but having parasocial relationships makes those things vastly, vastly worse and more intense than they would otherwise. This is terrible for fans. It is terrible for them because of the cost of these relationships and because of the opportunity cost of those relationships. And it is terrible for celebrities themselves.
I'd like to thank the member for his very fine speech, and I'd like to welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition to conclude the top half. Here.
Cool. As for POIs, I'll take them in chat. If I haven't taken one by 5, then you can unmute and like shake your fist and be very angry at me. Time starts in 3, 2. There's a very thin line between love and hate, and government pushes them in the wrong direction. First, I'm going to frame to you why it is the case that these people likely could not or will not find friends in the counterfactual. Note the weighing here. If we prove to you that overwhelmingly these people don't have the social capacity to just enter into other relationships in real life, then it means that when you take the one form of relationship they do have away from these people, they become inevitably lonelier, because the counterfactual is not one in which you go to school and become a social butterfly. It's one in which you have no friends at all and no way to express any of your emotions socially to other people. First, like they say in OG, people are seen as freaks or perceived as bad people if they have parasocial relationships with celebrities that they don't know, because there's not a lot of proximity between them. 2, for real friends and real relationships, there's a higher amount of proximity, i.e. you can talk to them, go to the movies with them, have more open and unfettered access to them because of how close you are in real life. 3, there are more things you can do, i.e. there's a wider array of friendship that can happen, or of interest that you can have with other people, i.e. when it is with celebrities, it is only through the filter of what they are giving to the public. When it's with real people and real friends, your friendship can change dynamically for the better over time. But 4th, there's a higher amount of time that is put into celebrity parasocial relationships with less to return, i.e. you're able to modulate friendships in real life with how much time you want to put into them, but you don't feel like you're a good fan parasocially if you don't put all of your time devoted into the celebrity. But lastly, time and emotional energy. We're going to say that when you have real friends, you can use the fact that you feel good or feel bad to modulate the amount of time and emotional energy you put into relationships and get out of relationships. However, with parasocial relationships, oftentimes it is harder. What does this all mean in the round? It means that overwhelmingly, if you can, you will choose real friendships over parasocial ones. That is, people who go to school or go to jobs or find people with like interests like sports will overwhelmingly opt into real life friendships, even if parasocial relationships are seen as normal, even if parasocial relationships exist, because they just won't opt into parasocial relationships for the overwhelming majority of their relationships. However, what happens when people do not have the capacity to get those outlets? Either A, they're not socially adept, B, they have other issues like self-confidence or an inability to get out of their shell, or 3, they're overwhelmingly shy. For this group of people, they turn to parasocial relationships, and those parasocial relationships and the communities that are formed around them help them for the better. And the counterfactual, these people don't go out and oftentimes get wrapped up in anger or wrapped up in hatred or wrapped up in resentment because they cannot find these other relationships. This is the critical nuance that we give you for the alt-right argument that gets flippantly responded to in DPM. Because what we actually tell you here is that parasocial relationships both give you the bridge for better relationships and stop you from getting into worse ones. The argument isn't that all of a sudden you care about an ethnic group that you never cared about before. The argument is that oftentimes hyper-online communities are tied to communities that cannot meet up in person, i.e. because they're more extreme in nature. And these communities specifically advertise and curtail people who feel like they're left out and forgotten by society writ large, which is why you see a huge explosion of men's rights advocates and incels that talk about how you can be a confident man and get the girl of your dream, that leads to people like Andrew Tate who do open human trafficking. Overwhelmingly, when people don't have the ability to get real life relationships, they shift to relationships that are more dangerous for them and worse for their ability to socialize. And know that this takes OG on their best case, because all the arguments they give you about loneliness, all the arguments they give you about how you can become a better person, all the arguments they give you about uncertainty with the amount of emotional time you put in, still happens for ideologies and still happens for groups that you don't form parasocial relationships with, but instead have very, very bad interactions with on the whole. What happens on our side when you have parasocial relationships? We tell you they get better relationships because communities around them. The response they give you here is awe, but the object of the community is the person and not the people. But notably here, oftentimes when these shy people have a very low capacity to get out of their shell, you can only adapt or interact with other people around the object of a third person, i.e. arbitrarily. If we both like Taylor Swift and both have Taylor Swift fan pages, then maybe we can talk about it together, which leads to us talking about other interests, will lead to us having actual socialization. This is often the push that these types of people need to get into social relationships that lead to having higher emotional maturity and higher social maturity that leads to branching out of parasocial relationships in the future. But secondarily, this also I'm going to beat the argument about intense fandom, because they tell you that, the counterfactual is just you're being a really, really intense fan. first, they don't ever prove the burden of why this intense fandom doesn't just become a parasocial relationship. They point to the mythical person who's a super fan of Taylor Swift and buys all of her music, but yet does not think that Taylor Swift is her friend, or does not think that Taylor Swift is someone who is a good person that they want to date, for example. We just posit the vast majority of hyper-intense fandoms will be parasocial relationships because they often have huge overlap. But secondarily, if it is the case that you believe that this is, thirdly, if it is the case that you believe that this person is your friend, and you believe that this person likes you, and this person says, I don't want to be in a parasocial relationship. You are not my friend. I don't know you. People often perceive this very harshly and angrily because they say, if you're not my friend, then you are my enemy, or you are bad for not letting me be your friend and be this close to your life. In fact, they can see this in DPM when they give you arguments about how people harass celebrities and do invasions of privacy and hide girlfriends in the K-pop scene. It's because people get very, very angry at these types of things. So when the celebrities say you can't be my friend, or parasocial relationships don't exist, or call them the freaks that everyone else in society is calling them, it makes them that much angrier. So they don't become intense fans. They don't become productive fans. They in fact get very, very angry and fueled by hatred. They make hate pages. They talk about how the celebrity is very bad. They actively do things like try and attack them or find them or stalk them, or put their anger and resentment into other bad forms of social community. This is the alt-right argument that operates on the level of celebrity as well. But before I continue, I'll take one from closing.
Okay, so there already are parasocial relationships and there are already incels. So where is the solution on your side?
Wait, the argument is obviously scalar, right? In a world where you actively admonish something that allows people to get out of these types of relationships, more people opt into them. Also, we tell you that on our side, lots of parasocial relationships lead to positive communities. On the comparative, less of them lead to negative ones, whereas on your side, more of them lead to negative ones. The next thing I'm going to talk about them is on celebrities, because they tell you to celebrities objectified and feel shallow and have invasion of privacy. But note, they need to engage with the argument at the bottom of LO, where we give you a flip to this mechanism, that when celebrities cannot market to a captive market that they know will buy their albums or go to their concerts, then there are more predatory album sales and predatory corporations that force them to do things they're uncomfortable with at higher rates so they can make those sales, because there's not a surefire investment in the form of parasocial relationships and fandoms in that way, which means that they're often having higher invasion of privacy, more run-ins with TMZ and paparazzi, forcing to do things that are more explicit or outside of their artistic freedom, which is both a curtail on their freedom and makes these celebrities feel worse, thus flipping the mechanism. The last thing I'm going to talk about here is why this weighs over any possible commitment from closing teams about how these groups already exist. We tell you that even if they already exist, the strength in vitriol that can happen in these groups can modulate widely, which is why you prefer op in this round. Proud.
I thank that member for his very fine speech, and I'd like to welcome the member of government to carry on the debate. Here.
Hi. If you can put your POIs in the chat, please. So in my speech, I'm going to wrap up what our opening half said about celebrities, talk a bit about media. But first, I just want to discuss what we've heard from the opening opposition. So, and especially their point that, look, these people who are in parasocial relationships are not going to make friends in real life because they're somehow deficient. They're like shy. They're lonely anyway. They won't have any friends. I think that this point that they make is taken out by like a line that they say in the second speech when they say that fandom is a bridge to friends, right? I don't need to have a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift to be a fan or to like her music or to go to her concerts, where there are tons of people who have similar interests to me. I think that when I go to a Taylor Swift concert, I can chat up to the person next to me and like, you know, make a conversation about our common interest in her music. Let's say like I say, oh, what do you think about this new album, or what do you think about this song? This one's my favorite. I like when she did this. Or I think that the difference here is that to be a fan of something, you're not obsessing over the person. You are simply interested in the output that celebrity puts out, right? Instead of being obsessed with the individual who creates that content. So you'll still have, fulfillment from being a fan of the celebrity. You'll still like listening to their music or engaging with their content, but you're not obsessed with the individual who's creating it. I think that you're still going to be able to go to concerts and make friends there. I don't think that people will be completely lonely as a result of that. Okay. Now, I think that an important thing that has been missing from this debate is the idea of the media, because the media is essentially the interface between celebrities and their audiences, right? People interact with celebrities through what people publish about them online, so to a certain extent, what that celebrity puts out on their own, but usually that is with the help of like a media representative or whatever. They go do interviews on like a TV station. They go start up their own podcast or whatever with a media company. I think that given that there is this relationship and the media is always the person who relays the information between the fan and the celebrity, there is an intense way for that media company to abuse the relationship between these two. And I think that it is better in a world in which there is no relationship between the fan and the celebrity except for the exchange of the actual content that is being created, right? Because there's no people aren't obsessing over like articles written about like the music itself. They're obsessing about the articles written about Taylor Swift and her personal life. So I think that simply some examples of this look like record labels or like managers or like agents forcing the celebrity to do these things that are engage with the basically parasocial fans who are intensely invested in the individual itself and to market that audience a product which they don't need. I think that this looked like fans of Logan Paul buying his extremely unhealthy energy drinks or whatever, things they don't actually need but are their dollars are being basically torn from their wallets because they have no ability to say no to this person who they believe loves them or is their best friend. They want to buy everything that this person recommends to them, which includes useless stuff. I think this is just a way that the media and massive corporations are able to basically make money off of people's inability to extract themselves from these unhealthy situations. I think that I think that this also is just quite bad for the celebrities, and I will do a bit of weighing here, which our opening half didn't do, so I can unlock the 1 minute of analysis they gave in the last on their second speech, which is that celebrities you may think are just famous people, lots of money, who why are they really so important? But I think that they are important in this round because maybe the info slide says it's the whatever, the Taylor Swifts or the what's the other example? I don't know. But the top 1% of celebrities who do this. But I think that's kind of untrue or disingenuous, right? I think that any band or athlete or politician or any sort of celebrity, no matter what the scale is, they have at least some people who are engaged in these parasocial relationships with them. And note that even if OO says, look, the majority of them are just innocent and well-meaning, all it takes is one person to jump up on stage and basically try to grope the celebrity or whatever. Or all it takes is one person to send them a creepy DM, or all it takes is one person to do something bad that would negatively impact the celebrity's life. And I think they're important simply because they're a person who is following their passion. They may not have reached the absolute pinnacle of fame, but in order to do that, they have the necessity to engage with corporations who are going to market their audience because that's where the money is, and that's how you activate the media to care about you, right? No media company is going to be writing an article about you unless you have these parasocial relationships with your fans. Because if I'm just an average fan who like one Taylor Swift song or whatever, I'm not going to be reading a super in-depth article about it. So I think that these media companies need to for basically are chasing clicks and need to engage with these celebrities in this way that targets the parasocial fans, which is I think to their detriment because it's inherently intrusive, right? You have media people who are breaking into homes, who are taking intimate photos or publishing salacious letters or anything that they didn't want published into the private sphere. Note that these are just people who are following their passion. If you want to be an artist, there is literally no other way to succeed in your field than to be a celebrity same thing with an athlete, same thing with a politician, right? Like if you're following your passion in these realms, because of the nature of the media who predates on these parasocial fans, to get any recognition, you're going to need to be somebody who does have these parasocial fans. I think there's no way to opt out of this, and it's incredibly bad for those celebrities, right? Now, I think that with the last bit of my time, I want to talk about what the label will do, like what OO said, right? That the label is going to make them do more crazy stuff if there are no parasocial relationships. And this doesn't make sense, because if you are a celebrity and nobody is a parasocial fan of yours, then nobody cares when you do a salacious thing or do some obscene thing in public, because your fans are fans of your content, not fans of you. They don't care about you individually. They enjoy your content and enjoy engaging with it, but they're not going to be incentivized to click on articles about you or buy your stuff if they're not parasocial.
I'd like to thank that member for his very fine speech. I'd like to remind members to take POIs. I'd now like to invite the member of opposition to carry on the debate. Here.
Modbo, right?
Yeah.
Can one judge turn on a camera or something if it's an option to begin with? I just don't like talking to myself, so I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Opening government says those people are problematic and abusive. It's obviously better to be by yourself instead of being with an abusive friend. Thus, it's not sufficient for opening opposition to say, but you have no other alternatives. I would rather be alone rather than be with a problematic fucker that constantly makes me feel horrible. I'm going to run one simple extension. In the vast majority of cases, those people make you feel good, they improve your day, and they by itself are good people that are making you feel happy. Simple extension as that. I'm going to give my reasons, respond to OG, do all the weighing by myself. Okay, 4 reasons as to why you are likely to feel good by those particular people. The first reason is mechanizing the illustration of opening opposition. Those people have monetary and financial incentives to make you feel good. They recognize that you need a sense of community, that you are lonely and wish to feel good. It is why, in the vast majority of cases, those people create an environment in which they're actively engaging in you. If they're a Twitch streamer, they're reading the comments. If they're a YouTuber, they are liking the comment and they're replying to that particular comment. They have Q&As, they invite fans to participate within the stream, the games, and the videos themselves. It's obvious that they want to include you within the participation itself, to encourage you to be more dedicated, to watch more of them, to have more viewership, more sponsors, more money from advertisements. They want to continuously validate you and make you feel good, like you are a worthy person, to give you compliments, to say how your community is the greatest ever, to appreciate you for spending time on the Twitch stream or on the YouTube stream, for you to feel good. This is the first reason. Simple enough. Profit incentive aligns with that. The second reason is that in the vast majority of cases, there's intense competition between role models in social media. Because in the vast majority of cases, they are competing with other Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, celebrities for viewerships. So obviously, they have to do stuff for their community. They have to bring back to the community. They have to actively engage with them, to actively ensure that the people feel good within that particular community. And they have to minimize the insults that they make towards the community so that the community doesn't feel bad. Obvious enough that this is why there are a lot of Twitch scandals in that particular way. Thirdly, opening government says they are sometimes inconsistent. They just disappear. I would say online celebrities are always consistent. Why is this structurally true? A, it is easier for them to run a business if every single week the 2 vlogs that they post on YouTube are at the same time. And B, it increases viewership if you predictably know every single time that they're going to have a Twitch stream from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. You can align your schedule with that. It just aligns with the profit incentive for them to consistently upload content, for the algorithm to continuously advertise them in Twitch and in YouTube, and for it to be more predictable, which is more convenient for both sides. So they more consistently publish content. You are never left dry. They always have streams. They always have if they don't have streams, they recycle old streams. They always post YouTube videos in that particular way. The fourth reason, and here I want to again engage with opening government, they create communities. Because if you are merely a fan and you enjoy the content, it's not clear why you would be obsessed and passionate to begin with to join those communities, to spend the extra time to write 3 paragraphs on YouTube, to like read Reddit for 30 minutes a fucking day. Obviously, they would engage to some degree, but for you to be able to make friends off of those communities, to reply to a person in the YouTube comments, to engage and join the Discord server and to actively participate, you must be somewhat obsessed and to really love that person. So clearly, it's not entirely unique, but nevertheless, you are more likely to engage comparatively on our side. Now, what are the reasons that opening government gives that are contesting to my analysis? There are 2 remaining reasons that stand. The first of which is, what if they make a mistake? I have already said why in the vast majority of cases, they're not likely to make mistakes, but I'm going to give 2 additional responses. The first of which is that in many cases, you don't follow one YouTube streamer and one Twitch streamer, right? In the vast majority of cases, you follow multiple ones. If one makes mistakes, you focus to the others. You obviously have multiple hobbies, interests, so it's not as if you watch one person every day, every time. And you obviously, if they're not online, if they haven't uploaded, you focus on another person, another Twitch streamer, another YouTuber. So it's like feasible for us to assume that you don't watch one particular person. But secondly, we have already proven why they're likely to be good role models. The second and vast remaining contesting analysis that they have is that this relationship is one-sided. I want to ask a very absurd, but I think simple question. Why do I care? It's one-sided, but every single day you turn on at 5 a.m., you are mentally exhausted, you put on a PewDiePie video, you put on a Twitch streamer, and you feel good about yourself. They directly validate you, they ask you rhetorical questions, they make the old familiar jokes. It's not clear to us why we care if it's one-sided, if they constantly make you feel good. It's something similar, consistent, you know them, you appear as though you are friends. Now, that this extension is out of the way. I want to make 2 additional observations that could make this to contend this extension. The first contention is from opening government, in which they say, but maybe certain people are going to become irrational, right? Even if it's not good for them to have parasocial relationships, they're going to have them. Obviously, the norm prior to this normalization is for you not to be a fucking nerd. Bro, touch some grass, don't be permanently online, go live in the real world. If this was the previous norm, then obviously normalization is more likely to mean tolerance, not glorification and encouragement for you to constantly do it. This is a sufficient enough response. The second response that we preemptively have is, but you can still be a fan. And here is where it's the problem. In the vast majority of cases, parasocial relationships are based on social media influencers, Twitch streamers, and YouTubers, because you watch the content not for the content themselves, but for their own particular commentary, for their own particular lifestyle, for the community that they make. Nobody watches PewDiePie because he plays fucking games. They watch it because he's PewDiePie. Now, before I continue, opening government, of course.
The fact that these celebrities interact and give you an immediate but trivial dopamine boost means you lose the incentive to seek in-person relationships. Celebrities make money off of your entrapment. How can you support that?
Okay. The first obvious response is that it's not cheap dopamine. You feel fulfilled. You have someone upon which you can constantly interact with and get positive affirmation, and you feel good about that in that particular way. The second response, and this is going to interact nicely with my impact. If those people are chronically online, how do we get solvency mechanisms? There are 2 solutions that we can uniquely offer. The first of which, if you, as a proxy of parasocial relationships, are more likely to get obsessed with fandoms and communities, you're more likely to have a common topic upon which you can talk with other people and form meaningful connections. In many cases, people form friendships in Discord servers, in YouTube comments, in which someone gives them solidarity, understands their struggles, or they're commonly gossiping. But secondly, the more you feel better about yourself, because you get constantly positive affirmations, you feel good about yourself, you are less depressed, you have a coping mechanism for reality itself, the more likely you are to go out and get friends as well. So it's not clear to us why it cancels out, especially those people are problematic. Those people make you feel good. It's a good trend. We should normalize it without judgment. Closing opposition.
I'd like to thank the member for his very fine speech and to invite the government whip to conclude our government's partners debate.
Hello, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, just organizing my notes. 3, 2, 1. Closing government takes a pretty simple stance. We basically say that the rise of parasocial relationships takes away autonomy from both consumers and from those people being idealized. They basically turn both groups into zombies that have to follow either basically what corporations are pushing forward, because I don't think that anyone is any team has proven that any of these these people being idealized are genuine. I think that in most cases, people have agreed that is manufactured either from by pressure from corporations or directly from corporations. So I'm going to do a themed whip. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So first question that I want to ask is, who is this helping? Because opening opposition says this is only important for the people who can really find no friends, because obviously if you can find a friend, it's better, right? So this is the major point of who we should care about. I think the problem here is that they did not prove that this group of people who have no friends are significant, right? I think that for a lot of time through history, people have been able to find niche groups by migrating, or even with the rise of internet, being able to find niche groups on the internet, like on Tumblr or Reddit or 4chan or whatever, which you don't always fall into incel right-wing groups. There are queer communities on there as well. I think that there was a rise with specifically people not being able to physically migrate and trying to find their sexual identity while still in conservative areas. These are facts that you just can't ignore, right? People aren't always just alone, right? So if we're asking about who this helps, and they're saying that it's only the people who are alone, and that group is small, we on on a surface level utilitarian weighing, then we are helping less people in the comparative if more people are being harmed by being sucked into this paranormal normalization, right? So surface level weighing, if we can prove that more people being involved with it harms people, then that's bad, right? But on another note, I just proved that those few people can be helped in other ways. So it's not a comparative debate. But secondarily, people are those people, if the goal of parasocial relationships are to help few but end up harming many, then that's a bad thing. The opening opposition gave us so many arguments to why friendships are better. And if you end up getting sucked into these parasocial relationships, then many people who have to forfeit the time they would spend into those real life relationships would also suffer. So they gave us a baseline, utilitarian weighing in their own speech. So I think that on the basis of who we're helping, it doesn't even get solved on their side of the house comparatively. And secondarily, it just harms more people. So the second thing second group of people who are being helped that Aidan pushes forward is it's basically corporations who are being helped, right? They're the people who are getting money from these celebrities, who usually that's the platform that these people are going onto. If you're if you're an actor or a musician, you have a record label agency. If you're on an influencer, you're on Twitch, etc. Right? So it's these corporations who give these people a platform, and the only reason they do it is to get a profit, right? In some cases, so celebrities get pressured to make decisions by those corporations so that it impacts their viewerships, either for the profit of those corporations that control them, or ideological benefits, right? In some cases, either it's pressure onto those celebrities or it's directly influencing those celebrities. Notice there's literally artificial celebrities like Vocaloids or Hololive are influencers who are literally just AI, who are controlled by companies who also control a large vast of consumers, right? So that brings me into the point that Aidan's saying about who, how does this affect real people, right? So opening government says, yeah, a lot of people are going to be hurt because they can't spend time on their relationships. They're stressed because they're not inherently happy from being in this one-way relationship, right? But I think Aidan takes it further by saying that you lose so much of your autonomy by being involved in this relationship, by being part of the media. Because why do people consume the media? They consume it because they want to entertain themselves or distract themselves from real work, right? They don't go because today I just really wanted to like follow like Anderson Cooper or whatever, right? Like they really want to like distract themselves from real life stuff, right? But by doing that, they have to buy into this parasocial like normalization that happens in the media that these companies are doing to get a profit, right? So all laundry list of things that happen is spending habits get influenced because you have to buy into this like parasocial relationship that's being pushed onto you, right? So like Aidan talked about how you like spend money on like spend money on things that like you might not want, like commercial things that you might not want. I'll take a POI in 2 seconds. It also affects your health if you buy into like cosmetics that, you know, are just endorsed by celebrities but aren't actually like genuine products. You can get like food that's bad for you, like, you know, like Logan Paul's drink. Safety, people get radicalized to take on the ground action to like harass people. Mental health, people like are affected by this turbulent relationship. Time that you're not able to put into like your own hobbies are all things that you're not able to like, that you have to make a trade-off. Yeah, go ahead, opening.
We already told you that corporations will just do worse forms of marketing, so the advertising is just symmetric, but the way in which it happens is worse. But we also told you they have incentives to not market incredibly bad products.
Okay, you get 1 in a POI. I don't buy in that, so that corporations will just do like worse things on your side of the house. The reason they do this is because it's the most effective, because people buy things because their friends and families tell them that it's something that they ought to like, that'll benefit them. If they now think that a celebrity is their part of their friends and family in their close circle, that's the most effective thing that's going to get them to go to the store and to like make life decisions that affect their health and safety. So I don't buy that there's a more effective way to do that. I think that you have to buy into the fact that when you go in the media and every like person there is trying to connect with you and influence your life, you're inherently your autonomy is being taken away, right? The closing opposition's response to this is like, yeah, but that's good, right? Because like at least the celebrity engages with you. But I don't think that that's like true at all, because like I don't know how like, oh, thanks for 50 subs is comparable to like all the things that you're losing out on our side. And then they say like, oh, well, like how are these people supposed to get like viewers if like they aren't able to make parasocial relationships? I think that we just go to proficiency. I think people just are good at games, good at streaming, good at acting, and that's a comparative proud to propose.
I'd like to thank the member for what was a very fine speech, and now I'd like to invite the opposition whip to conclude the debate. Here.
Hi, I presume you can hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Here I is in chat. I will take one from opening. Three, two, one. When Twitch streamers are like, chat, can you believe this? This is fucking ridiculous. Or when Taylor Swift is like, thank you to the most dedicated fans who stayed for the whole concert, who bought VIP tickets, blah, blah, blah. You feel seen, you feel heard, and most importantly, you like, even if you want to say that you feel like delusional to the point of which you feel recognized by someone who you respect, love, and wish to be alike. I don't see a problem in that, and I think GovBench fails to prove why it's bad. Firstly, responding to OG, CG, and then comparing with our openings. One, on OG, I would say that their basic 2 premises is that, one, relationships with like parasocial relationships make people feel bad, and secondly, that this trades off with real friends and like people. Firstly, engaging on this makes you feel bad. They say, but you feel unfulfilled, not bad. Those two are not the same. What is this EPL bullshit? What do you mean it's not the same? When you feel unfulfilled, you feel like a hole in your tummy, you feel unsatisfied, you feel constantly sad. Why isn't this the same? I really don't understand. Maybe I'm being just too ESL. I don't know. But the actual response here is they say, but you don't realize that you feel bad because you glorify this person. I would say over time, when you consistently have small bits of time where you feel unfulfilled, if the celebrity actually isn't doing this in a good way, you over time realize that this is not good for you, and you either switch to another celebrity or you constantly push yourself to find some other alternative to bring you happiness. However, the strongest response to this is just Biser's case. He proves to you that in the majority of cases, celebrities have all the incentives and capacity to do this in a good way in order to feel and make you feel engaged. There's a lot of what ifs in the OG case. It's bad if you are like one-sided friendship. Why is this bad? I really don't understand. But even if it is, I would say it's the following. Their competitive is but human relationships don't make you feel that way. But why? Humans are fucking bastards. They constantly make you feel bad. This looks like, for example, you having liking a person more than they like you. You obsess with them like a friend, but they don't like you as much and they don't want to hang out with you, right? This feels like a one-sided relationship and it happens very often. This is not me projecting, by the way. Secondly, you feeling out of control. Your friends, when they don't listen to you, when you give them advice, it's the same thing. I tell my best friends, go fuck your ex, and she just goes and does it. And I feel out of control. So it's symmetrical with human relationships, and they never make the comparative. What human relationships are better? I know it may sound somewhat intuitive, but I really don't think they prove it. And even if they do, they don't do it sufficiently well. Secondly, on this is a trade-off. I have 3 responses why there isn't a trade-off. Firstly, on your physical and emotional capability to have multiple relationships. So their analysis this is so intense that you have no capability to have other relationships. But do you know what else is intense as a relationship? Having a boyfriend or having a best friend, right? All of those relationships, you invest a lot of time, energy, and yet you're still able to have normal friends, to go to hang out with your college friends, your work friends, meaning you don't have such a small capacity to have human relations, and they completely assert that you do. Secondly, though, I would expect, they say, but your celebrities cannot compete because they're too perfect. I would just point, this is a contradiction to their case, because they say celebrities sometimes makes mistakes, and this makes you feel bad because you're connected to their image. So if they make mistakes, it's easy for you to compare them to real people. But secondly, even if that's the case, I don't know why having high standards for friends is something bad. I would prefer to have friends who don't make very big mistakes where they hurt me, as opposed to ones that constantly do. I don't know why this is something bad. And also, celebrities like to showcase some mistakes on their part to make themselves feel human, to be relatable to the average person. Therefore, they're not as ideal as they want them to point out, because it seems inhumane. Lastly, flipping them. We prove that when you have points where you feel good because this person interacts with you and because you feel seen, it pushes you to have other relationships. So the intuition here is, if you are depressed or you're generally feeling down, having sudden moments of positive emotions pushes you to actively go out into the world to seek relationships. So we provide the solvency that GovBench seeks on why you're able to seek more friends after you actually feel bad, after your faith in humanity is restored. But lastly, I would say, even if this trades off with the real people, I would say people are shit. They don't listen to you because they feel like they have a burden on themselves. They're selfish. But secondly, they're not always available, right? They have a job, friends. Comparatively, the celebrity is always there. You can rewatch content. You can constantly tweet at them. You can go and do all of those things. Friends are not. Therefore, it's better. Lastly, on community, we explain, we say, but you can have a community as a normal person. No, normal fans don't have as much information to exchange as passionate fans, right? So you don't have as much to talk about. They don't know the niche stuff about the relationship of Taylor Swift. But secondly, it's just not very consistent. You cannot talk to them every week about the new gossip that came out, right? So this is a very short conversation, and on an actual relationship, we prove why very dedicated fans are able to find those relationships. Opening.
Fandoms exist regardless, but Discord friendships are always less satisfying than your family and classmates, who even shy people have desires to invest in and can when they have the time, energy, and encouragement to do. But these relationships...
We analyze on O, where they explain that you wouldn't choose to have this relationship if you had the ability. We explain the comparative of why this person is actually good and why it's a good relationship. Therefore, we feel that burden. People want to have normal friends. Why does it feel good to feel good? One, you feel understood, because when you watch thousands of interviews of Taylor Swift, you feel like she has similar problems with you, so you feel like you're heard. But secondly, when you have a unique community, it pushes you to be able to go over that. Now, secondly, on CG, I would say that they say celebrities, but the way in here is simple. One, there are comparatively less celebrities than fans. There are 100 celebrities, there are 100 million fans, so we don't care as much. But secondly, celebrities directly benefit from this. Maybe you have a privacy breach, but one, you consented to this, and two, it brings you disproportionate benefits because it gives you the money to do stuff that you love. Therefore, I don't care. Lastly, on all, I would say a few things. One, they don't respond sufficiently to OG as to why those celebrities are actually good. They tell you why their side is worse on who would obsess otherwise, but don't explain why those people are better. Therefore, we feed that gap. Secondly, they say your celebrities might do certain stuff, such as live stream or talk to fans, but we give you the incentives and the capability analysis to why they're able to do this. Thirdly, their analysis is just not a definite harm. Sometimes it's good to obsess over political parties in order to bring social change, right? If you like obsess over like a green party or whatever. But secondly, you obsessing over religion allows you to find yourself. Therefore, it's not a definite harm. Our analysis why feeling good is a definite harm, no matter who you are. But lastly, they only affect the lonely people. Our analysis applies to all people who are normal and who obsess over Taylor Swift. Vote for us.